I know many fans of Rayman, like myself, have really been let down by Ubisoft to set our favorite four-limbed friend on the back burner. Or is it five limbs? Is the head a limb? But with the release of the DLC for Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, and now that the Rabbids are finally get pushed to the side for a moment, and Rayman seemingly being brought back into the limelight, I figured it was good as time of any to talk about a Rayman game that seemingly nobody remembers. Rayman Arena was released in 2001 for PC, Xbox, GameCube, and PS2. It featured a huge cast of fun and interesting characters from the Rayman universe, and it was a huge turn from the original gameplay of Rayman 2. The game still focused around 3D platforming, but the game itself was now a party game of sorts, and it was honestly a really good take on the series in my opinion. Just to clear things up, I played a lot of Rayman 2 and 3 growing up, and I adored these games. So I definitely understand the disconnect for fans who wanted another true Rayman game and not a spin-off. But to young homebound, Rayman Arena was a godsend. This game had my favorite character, Glowbox, fully playable in a 3D environment, and I could fight other characters from the Rayman world, and my little mind was just blown. But I digress. Like I said before, Rayman Arena was a party game, but it wasn't necessarily a Mario Party clone or something you'd really expect. No, Ubisoft got creative. The game was composed of two main modes, Race and Battle. Both games also had sub-options, but the race sub-options are nothing more than a glorified time attack and a collection challenge. Race mode consisted of 4 characters, all going head-to-head in a 3-lap foot race, and instead of having items or pickups or anything of the sorts, you had these magic shots called Lums. Prior to Rayman Arena, these were exclusively something Rayman could shoot out in his original games, but for the sake of Arena, they just made it a thing anyone can do. The Lums were an interesting mechanic. At any point during the race, you could shoot them out, but every few seconds they would become freeze Lums, and if you shot these and hit your opponent, it would just freeze them in place for a little bit. But the biggest draw of the Lums is the ability to change the environment and destroy obstacles by shooting them. I can't emphasize how awesome this was to me as a kid, because while I was replaying the games for the video, I still found myself mesmerized by being able to manipulate the courses mid-race. The battle mode is the other big part of the game, and what really warrants the arena in the title of the game. Battle mode consists of 3 modes with varying objectives. The first mode is a collection game where you must collect these weird glowing rock things in order to increase your score, and the first to 5 wins. If that sounds lackluster, that's fine, it kinda is. The meat of the battle mode is definitely the second and third modes. The second mode, and my personal favorite, is called Lum Fight. It was this really cool third-person shooter-esque mode where you run around the map and collect power-ups to shoot at each other. And once again, the first to 5 eliminations wins. The way that you got an elimination is just, you gotta hit your opponent enough, and once their health drops to 0, you get a point. It was simple as that. The third and final mode you can unlock in battle mode is Capture the Fly, and this one's pretty straightforward. You grab hold of the fly and you keep running around with it until you've had for whatever length is required to hit 10 points. I couldn't quite figure it out while playing. I felt like it was maybe 3 seconds per point. So let's just say 30 seconds of holding the fly would win you the game. All the while, the other players can shoot at you and steal the fly. Now, here's the kicker. Everything I just told you about is mostly only on the PS2 and PC version of the game. Rayman Arena is actually a localization of a game called Rayman M. Rayman M was simply the name for the European version of the game, but Arena probably sounded a little bit more appealing to the American gamers. Where the problems arise is when you realize that Rayman Arena was released prior to the Xbox and GameCube systems. I know I said that it released alongside the other two, but it was a little bit of a lie. And keep in mind, this was obviously the other 2 systems that the game was available on, aside from the PC and PS2. And when the game was finally released for these 2 new systems, there was a heap of changes. And I mean, there was a lot. Just take a look at this list. Everybody's heard about Rayman. Right off the bat, there's a ton of noticeable changes. We got a new intro, a new character, new skins, cutscenes, an entirely redone UI, and a whole lot of quality of life improvements. But for some reason, there was a lot of modes cut. The latter two battle modes mentioned in the PS2 and PC versions of the game are nowhere to be found, but honestly, they aren't quite missed. This updated version of the game more than makes up for it. Overall, the game runs much more smoothly and just feels a whole lot more polished. So, let's get into the differences. Races are now structured more in the style of Mario Kart, namely in the way of how you progress. You now compete in cups that consist of 3 races, whereas on the PC and PS2 versions, you would kind of just pick whichever race you wanted to do and take it at your own order. But back to what I was saying. Take first in all 3 of these races, and you win whatever reward was offered, either being a skin or a new character. The race mode is immediately improved on by sprucing up the maps and making them all a lot more lively. There's a cheering crowd, more obstacles, and overall there's just a lot more to the environment without overdoing it. There was also a change that removed the ability to freeze other players with a Lum shot from normal races. You can still shoot to activate obstacles and change terrain as you were in the other version of the game, and honestly the change is quite welcome. The removal of freezing allowed for a lot better skill expression by simply showing how well you can maneuver the maps. Also, I just want to quickly note how well the music is done in these games. Regardless of which version you're playing, every character in Rayman Arena has their own special theme that plays when you're in the lead, and the way it transitions between songs when a new player takes the lead is done surprisingly well. Just listen. It's kind of neat, right? There's also an interesting time attack mode added to race. Now, this is actually where the free shot has moved to from the normal race mode. The point of time attack is to gain enough distance on your opponent that you can pass a checkpoint, and then 6 seconds can pass without your opponent reaching that same checkpoint behind you. And at that point, you win. Race is over. I wish there was more to be said about this mode, but honestly, that's all there really is with this one. And it's actually pretty fun to be able to test how well you know the maps. Before I get into the battle mode, I know I mentioned a new character, and here it is. Start Glowbox. Once you get past his odd demeanor, he's honestly really fun, I promise. But now onto the battle mode. Battle mode has been broken into 2 types. We've got Total Fight and Freeze Combat. Total Fight is mechanically the same mode as Lum Fight, but with a few updates. The mode now focuses around points, and I don't mean points from eliminations, I mean points from just hitting the other players, and honestly, it's a welcome change. There's no noticeable point cap or anything like that. It just goes on for about 3 minutes, and then once the timer's up, whoever has the most points at the end wins. There is merits to eliminations. Obviously, it takes out the other player for a couple seconds so you can recuperate whatever you're doing. But every elimination actually regains one of your hit points, which is pretty helpful at certain moments. The changes made to this mode, honestly, are pretty fair. I much more enjoyed playing this version of Lum Fight. The other battle mode now offered is Freeze Combat. Freeze Combat is just the first battle mode mentioned for the PS2 version of the game, but it's under a different name. It's the same one where you run around and collect the glowing rocks. The same improvements apply to this mode as well. Instead of stopping at 5, the game mode now has a timer to it, but it doesn't really help in the same way. I found that the game kind of drags on for a while because of the monotony of just going after the rocks and freezing each other. And I actually found that you can use the freeze shot to stun your opponent in place. If you look at this clip here, I managed to freeze Mrs. Razorbeard for around 20 seconds by simply shooting at her repeatedly. But overall, the mode feels fun to play still. Between the two versions of the game, I would have to say the GameCube and Xbox version definitely have a lot more going for it, as I previously touched on, but I personally have a lot more nostalgia towards the PS2 version of the game. There's just something so magical to me about the menu design compared to the updated version of the game, but that's really the only huge difference for me. Personally, I feel both games have their ups and downs for their own respective reasons, but either way to play Rayman Arena is definitely just a fun experience. Rayman Arena is a special game to me, and in a perfect world, I would love to see Ubisoft remaster this game, or at least bring it to modern consoles. And as much as I know that won't happen, it would just be so awesome to see that happen. Overall, Rayman Arena is an absolute treasure of a game to me. From the fun character designs, strange and interesting stages and arenas, and to the amazing soundtrack the game has, there's just so much to offer. Rayman himself will always have a special place in my heart, and does that slightly affect my opinion on the game? Yeah, a little. But damn, do I love this game. If you've played Rayman Arena before, let me know what your thoughts and experiences are. If you haven't, do yourself a favor and check this game out. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.